Most people wake up in the morning and immediately reconnect with the familiar world around them. They check their phones, remember who they are, where they live, the problems they face, the people they interact with, the routines they follow. And just like that, they begin to think in the same ways they did yesterday. Their thoughts produce the same feelings, and those feelings drive the same behaviors. This loop becomes a memorized self, and without realizing it, they begin their day anchored to the past. To change your life, you must first become aware of who you've been. Not who you tell others you are, not who you aspire to be, but who you are being, moment by moment. This means observing the automatic thoughts that race through your mind when you're not trying to think. It means paying attention to the emotions that seem to arise out of nowhere, but have been living inside you for years. It means catching the subtle reactions, the internal dialogues, the judgments, the self-talk that's become background noise in your everyday experience. Awareness is the first key. Without it, you're simply running a program. 95% of who you are by the time you're in your 30s is a set of memorized behaviors, emotional reactions, unconscious habits, hardwired attitudes, and conditioned beliefs. That means you're only truly conscious 5% of the time. So if you're not aware of what you're thinking, how you're feeling, and how you're acting, then you're not changing, you're just reliving the past and calling it a new day. To break this cycle, you have to step into the role of the observer. You have to become conscious of your unconscious self. When you notice that you're complaining out of habit, when you catch yourself feeling anxious for no immediate reason, when you realize you've been scrolling mindlessly for 30 minutes, you are no longer in the program. You are watching the program. That moment is powerful. That moment is the beginning of transformation. You can't change something until you become aware of it. This kind of awareness requires honesty, presence, and stillness. You must be willing to sit with yourself. Not as the person you project to the world, but as the accumulation of thoughts and feelings that you've practiced being. You have to feel what it's like to be you. Not distract yourself, not numb it, not run from it, but actually observe it. What does anxiety feel like in your body? What thoughts precedes it? You have to feel what it's like to be you. What belief is hiding underneath that thought? Who taught you that belief? Is it even true? When you start asking these questions, you peel back the layers of your identity, and you begin to see that so much of what you thought was you is simply memorized. You begin to realize that your personality, your personal reality is not fixed. It's flexible. And that realization, born of awareness, is the key that opens the door to change. I think becoming aware is not about judgment. It's not about labeling your patterns as good or bad. It's about observation with compassion. You must learn to become familiar with your inner landscape, You must witness your inner world the way a scientist watches an experiment. Curious, neutral, and committed to understanding. Because the more you observe the old self, the less you identify with it. And the less you identify with it, the more power you have to create something new. You may notice that your body has been conditioned to a particular emotional state. For example, if you've been living in survival mode, always preparing for the worst, always protecting yourself, always reacting, you'll find that your body has become addicted to stress hormones. And when you try to step out of that familiar emotional territory, the body resists. It craves the chemical rush of fear, worry, or anger, even if it's destroying your health. Awareness allows you to catch that cycle in action. You realize, I am not my body's cravings. I am not this reaction. I am the one who sees it. That simple shift moves you from being at the effect of your life to becoming the cause of it. The deeper you go into this awareness, the more you begin to see how often you're living in the past. You think based on past experiences, feel based on past emotions, and act in ways that were hardwired by yesterday. You are reliving memories emotionally and calling it a personality. The awareness of this fact is not disheartening, it's liberating. Because once you know how your system is running, you can rewire it. And you can recondition the body to a new mind, but first you must become the watcher of your own experience, not once, not occasionally, but as a practice, as a devotion. Awareness is not a one-time realization. It's a continuous returning to the present moment. It's the choice to stay conscious when everything in you wants to drift back into autopilot. It's the courage to see yourself clearly, to meet the unexamined parts of your psyche, and to stay awake in the process. Breaking the habit of the old self begins with understanding that who you think you are, your personality, your identity, is not something fixed or permanent. It is, in fact, a collection of repeated thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that you've rehearsed so consistently that they've become automatic. Day after day, you wake up and begin to act as that version of yourself without even thinking about it. You remember the past, predict the future based on what's already happened, and emotionally anchor yourself to those experiences. Over time, this cycle creates what feels like you, but it's not really you. It's who you've been trained to be, often without your conscious consent. Every time you have the same thought, you fire the same neural networks. Every time you feel the same emotion, you create a chemical signature in the body that reinforces that thought. Thought and emotion together create a state of being. If you do this enough times, your body starts to memorize that state better than your mind. That's when you're no longer thinking your way into your emotions. Your body is automatically feeling your way back into your thoughts. This is where the loop becomes unconscious. The body becomes the mind. It knows how to be anxious, how to be resentful, how to be insecure without needing any external stimulus. You've trained it that well. To break the habit of the old self, you have to become greater than that loop. You have to catch the moment where the old mind wants to pull you back into the same pattern and make a different choice. And that's not easy, because the body, which has become addicted to the emotional chemistry of the past, will resist. It will cry out for the familiar. It will send you thoughts that seem urgent, tempting, even logical. It will say, this is just who I am, or I've always been this way, or I can't help it. But those thoughts are not truth. They are defense mechanisms. They are the body's way of clinging to the known. Change begins with discomfort. You have to be willing to sit in that uncomfortable space where you're not yet who you want to be, but you're also no longer who you were. This in-between space is where transformation happens. The old emotions will rise up. They have to, because you've stopped feeding them the energy they once thrived on. The anger, the guilt, the shame, the self-doubt. They surface not to harm you, but because they're being evicted from the nervous system. Your job is not to act on them. Your job is to witness them, feel them, and choose differently. That choice might be as small as taking a breath instead of reacting. It might be staying calm when your old self would lash out. It might be speaking a truth when you're used to staying silent. Whatever the moment looks like, it is your opportunity to wire a new circuit in the brain. The first time you do it, it might feel unnatural. The second time may be a little more familiar. But with repetition, you begin to install a new mind. You begin to tell the body a new story. You're no longer thinking from the past. You're thinking from possibility. The old self is not just a mindset. It's a memorized state of being. It's how you walk, how you talk, how you respond, even how you hold your posture. It's the voice in your head that speaks with authority but was shaped by your history. And to change it, you have to become so familiar with its patterns that you can catch it in the act. When it tells you to procrastinate, you act. When it urges you to retreat, you move forward. When it whispers fear, you respond with courage. Not by trying to suppress the fear, but by not giving it your attention. You recondition yourself in real time. This process is not about fixing yourself, it's about unbecoming what you are not. It's about returning to a version of you that's more aligned with who you truly are. A creator, not a reactor. You're not here to recycle your past again and again until it defines your future. You're here to rewrite the program by choosing thoughts, feelings, and actions that align with the person you're becoming. But make no mistake, the old self will not go quietly, and it has momentum, history, and biological investment. You may feel like you're losing something when you stop being who you've always been. That's normal. You are losing something, the illusion that your identity is set in stone. You are letting go of a story that was never truly yours, and in its place you begin to build a new internal environment, one that no longer relies on circumstances to determine your state of being, but instead is governed by intention, consciousness, and choice. Rewiring the mind through visualization begins with understanding a fundamental truth. The brain does not know the difference between a real event and one that is vividly imagined. When you close your eyes and begin to mentally rehearse a new future, your brain begins to fire in new sequences and patterns, as if that imagined future were happening now. With enough repetition and emotional intensity, those neural networks start to form the architecture of a new reality, not outside of you, but within you. You begin to install a new mind before the experience ever physically occurs. That is the essence of personal transformation. To think greater than your current environment, greater than your current circumstances, and greater than the familiar emotional states that have kept you anchored to the past. Most people try to change their lives by reacting to what they see. They look at their present conditions and they use their senses to determine what is possible. If the money isn't there, they feel lack. If the relationship isn't improving, they feel frustration. If the healing hasn't happened yet, they feel despair. In doing so, they reaffirm their current reality with their thoughts and emotion. They keep signaling the same old chemistry in their body, and they keep conditioning the same old mind. Nothing changes because their focus remains trapped in what is. Visualization, however, is the act of going beyond the known. It is the decision to mentally step into a future that has not yet happened, and to make it so familiar to your mind and body that it begins to feel real when you see yourself in that new job, in that healed body, in that loving relationship. And when you can feel the emotions associated with it, you begin to rewire your brain for that reality. Neurons are fire together, wire together. So if you consistently visualize with clarity in emotion, you are literally changing the structure and function of your brain. You are sculpting your internal world to reflect your desired external world. But visualization is not just daydreaming. It is not about wishful thinking or positive affirmations spoken without conviction. It is a practice of focused attention and elevated emotion. When you engage with the images in your mind with the same presence you would apply to a real-life experience, your brain records it as memory. The key is emotional engagement. Emotion is energy, and motion is what imprints the experience in the body. So if you're visualizing success while feeling doubt, you're not sending a coherent signal. But if you're visualizing success while feeling empowered, inspired, or grateful, now you're aligning the thought of your future with the feeling of your future. That alignment is what creates coherence in the brain and the heart. It's what makes the signal strong enough to affect matter. The more you practice visualizing your future with emotion, the more familiar it becomes. You stop feeling like you're faking it and start recognizing it as a part of you. The brain starts to believe it's already happened. The body begins to feel like it's already living that reality. And once the body has memorized that future emotional state, it no longer needs the external event to feel whole. That's when you become magnetic. That's when your energy begins to shift and life responds, not because you're forcing it, but because you've become a match for the experience you've created internally. You cannot create a new future from the emotional signature of the past. You can't build abundance from a feeling of lack. You can't attract love while embodying fear. You can't experience freedom while clinging to resentment. These lower emotional states are survival-based. They are rooted in separation, in the belief that something outside of you must change for you to feel whole. But elevated emotions do the opposite. They connect you to possibility. They move you into the present moment. They shift your biology from a reactive state to a creative one. And when you can teach your body how to feel an elevated emotion before the event has occurred, you are signaling to your system that the future you desire is not something far away. It's happening now. Gratitude is one of the most powerful elevated emotions because it's the ultimate state of receivership. When you're grateful, Your heart opens. You feel connected. You stop waiting for something to happen to feel good. You feel good because you're already aligned with the idea that what you want is on its way. Gratitude tells the body and brain that the experience has already occurred. And this initiates a new hormonal cascade that reinforces the state. If you practice gratitude daily, you begin to live in the feeling of your future. And the body begins to believe it's already there. That belief, sustained over time, becomes a new set point for your energy. It is no longer dependent on external validation. Love, joy, inspiration, freedom. These emotions elevate your consciousness because they bring you back to who you really are. They are not fleeting states reserved for perfect moments. They are frequencies you can train yourself to tune into. At first, this might feel difficult, especially if the body is addicted to stress or familiar with suffering. But just like training a muscle, you can build emotional strength. You can sit in stillness, close your eyes, and summon the feeling of joy. You can breathe into your heart and recall a moment where you felt unconditional love, not just to revisit it, but to relive it. The more you do this, the more you entrain your body to a new chemical reality. Your cells begin to bathe in different neuropeptides. Your immune system responds. Your brain waves shift. You begin to biologically embody a new future. But what's important to understand is that elevated emotions are not dependent on what's happening outside of you. You don't need permission to feel gratitude. You don't need everything to be perfect to feel love. You just need the intention and the willingness to step into those states without needing a reason. The more you do that, the more you become the cause of your internal reality, not the effect of your external one. This reverses the usual model of reality, where people wait for something to happen in order to change how they feel. Instead, you feel the change first, and the external begins to mirror it. When you live from elevated emotions, your energy becomes coherent. Your heart and brain move into harmony. You begin to influence matter instead of being influenced by it. People respond to you differently. Synchronicities appear. Opportunities find you, not because you forced them, but because you became energetically available to receive them. The signal you are emitting is now aligned with the future you desire. You stopped living in survival and started living in creation. You no longer wait to feel better. You feel better and watch how your world transforms in response. This is the power of elevated emotion. It is not a temporary mood. It is a lifestyle. It is a skill. It is a declaration to the universe that you've already become the person who belongs in the life you're dreaming about. And when that declaration becomes your resting state, change is no longer a matter of if. It becomes inevitable. Living as your future self now is the final and most powerful phase of transformation. It's where the inner work becomes your way of being, not just a practice you do once a day, but a continuous embodiment of who you are choosing to become. This is where you stop waiting for the evidence of your new reality to show up before you change, and instead you decide to become the version of yourself who already lives that future. You stop identifying with the memories of your past and begin wiring your mind and body to the memory of your future. You walk, speak, think, and feel as if that future is already here. In doing so, you collapse the time it takes for that future to arrive, because you're no longer separate from it. You are it. When most people want change, they wait. They wait for the money to come, for the opportunity to appear, for the relationship to find them, for the healing to take place. But waiting is the language of separation. Waiting reinforces the idea that you are not yet who you want to be, that your dreams exist somewhere outside of you in some distant, unreachable future. This mindset keeps you in a state of lack, and that state produces emotions that match lack: frustration, impatience, doubt, fear. As long as you live in those emotions, you're signaling to your body in the quantum field that your future is not here. You are reaffirming the old self every time you feel that separation. Living as your future self now means you close that gap. You no longer think from your circumstances, you think from the vision. You wake up and instead of rehearsing the problems of the past, you begin rehearsing your future. You imagine the conversations you would have, the confidence you would carry, the choices you would make. You see yourself in the role and the body and the life that represents your vision, and you train your brain to believe it's happening now. The more you do this, the more familiar that new identity becomes. The brain doesn't distinguish between what's real and what's vividly imagined. So with enough emotional intensity and repetition, it begins to wire that version of you as if it's already true. Your body follows. When the brain and body are aligned in that elevated state, you move from thinking about change to becoming it. This is not about pretending or faking. This is about generating the feelings of the future within your body so consistently that your biology begins to match the experience of the person you're becoming. You're not waiting for external evidence to feel abundant. You feel abundant because you've remembered what it feels like to be in alignment. And I'm not trying to act successful. You are successful in your state of being. You've trained your nervous system to recognize that elevated emotion as familiar and therefore safe. The body is no longer resisting the unknown. It is no longer craving the chemistry of the past. It is now addicted to the new energy, the new emotion, the new identity. Every thought you think and every action you take either reinforces the old self or installs the new one. Living as your future self now means you become hyper-aware of your inner world. You monitor your thoughts not with judgment but with presence. You watch for moments when you want to fall back into the habits of the old self, and you gently, deliberately choose differently. You speak the way that version of you would speak. You carry yourself with the posture of that person. You align your decisions with the values and vision of the future you. And the more you embody that version of you now, the less power the past has over you. Your energy shifts. People notice something different. You're not the same person. Not because something happened outside of you, but because you've changed your frequency. You're no longer trying to become your future self. You are being it. And in that beingness, you draw experiences, opportunities, and outcomes that match your internal state. You don't chase, they arrive. You don't strive, you allow. Life becomes a reflection of the person you've already decided to be. The outer world rearranges itself to mirror the internal transformation because your personal reality is always a reflection of your personality. And when that personality is intentionally constructed to match the life you envision, the gap between who you were and who you're becoming dissolves. True transformation begins within, not by chasing outcomes in the outer world, but by changing the thoughts, emotions, and behaviors that have kept you tethered to who you no longer wish to be. When you become aware of your present self and break the habit of the old mind, you create the space to envision a new future. Visualization becomes the bridge between what is and what can be, and by cultivating elevated emotional states, you start to feel the future before it arrives. But the real shift happens when you live that future now, when you think, act, and feel as if your desired life is already unfolding. This is how you rewire your mind, reshape your energy, and recondition your body to a new destiny. You stop waiting for change and instead become the change. When you do, life no longer happens to you, it begins to happen through you.